Hi, we're on to day 4, Thursday already of Children's Week. And I've clubbed these two together just because I think they're for similar age children or similar reading levels. And they're slightly older, so we're looking at sort of 9, 10 plus. I think it would depend, obviously, that children are also different, aren't they, in how quickly they want to read and the types of things they want to read. I'm going to start with, and I'm laughing because I know what I'm about to say. I'm going to start with Evan and the Bottom Rockets by Chris Mercer. I don't have a cover page, but there will be on the website. And this is a very funny, I mean, my older two were just giggling away for hours about farting, really. I mean, essentially that's what the book's about. All of the names, every single person's name is a double entendre. The school is, you know, it has a farty name. It's wonderfully hilarious, and Chris was a teacher, so he's heard it all and seen it all. My daughter, interestingly, got a little bit like, oh, another bottom joke kind of thing, so she rose above it, but my 9-year-old son did not, and thought it was the funniest thing he'd ever read in his entire life. And although it has illustrations in it, you know, it's a proper kind of children's, older children's book to read. So, whereas Farty McFart Pants was a picture book essentially, I definitely think my 9-year-old felt this was more his sort of thing, because it was, although the content was very similar in terms of language, it's a real book. It's a chapter book. So it's lots of fun. Parents won't enjoy it as much as children. It will give them outrageous words that they will say probably for many weeks. But they read, you know, this is my reluctant reader, so he read it, he thought it was hilarious, he laughed to himself. It was just bang on for him, and that fills me with joy as a parent. So it's definitely one to have a go with. It's lots of fun. It's got some fabulous names, some wonderful words to get your mouth round. You know, some lovely language in it, which is so powerful, isn't it? So definitely try Evan and the Bottom Rockets by Chris Mercer. And I have to say, there's a few characters in there that could appear in other things. So it's possible there'll be more, and I will ask Chris about that. I think there could be more to come from the Bottom Rocket family. They're certainly an interesting family. And the next book is totally different. But again, my 9-year-old boy very engaged, my 8-year-old girl very engaged, and I think it could go older as well, because it's they found some of the language quite challenging, and anyway, it's called The Coming of the Spirits, and this is Rob Keeley. Now, we've reviewed a few Rob Keeleys before, and I'll put links when I type this up on the website. So this Coming of the Spirits is the last book in a series. And although we've read one of the other books, but not all of them, and this one really pulls together all of the stories, but it is a new story in itself. So it didn't matter that we hadn't read the others. But I always think with a series, it just adds richness, doesn't it? It adds depth. So we will go back. We're going to go back and read them all, because there were lots of characters in there. We thought, oh, that would be interesting. So it's there's elements of time travel, and there's elements of history changing. So, you know, history doesn't always go to plan, because the spirits get involved and things happen. And so they're now trying to go back and right the wrongs that have happened through history. My children find that quite challenging, just because they were bits of history that they hadn't come across. And actually that was brilliant, because that allowed me, the historian, to get out my history timelines, and it was lovely. I've got one of those history timeline maps that's the length of the house, and we blue tacked it up, and we looked at, you know, this is then and this is then, and this is what happened after, and it was interesting, and it reinforces to me that I think history taught in schools would make so much more sense if it was chronological. You know, they've done things but out of order, and so they actually have no sense of where they come in relation to each other. So they know about cavemen and they know about Romans and they know about this, but they don't understand the where that interplay comes, why they're relevant to each other. But that's my own beef. So Coming of the Spirits, it was challenging because it I mean that in a really good way. Rob doesn't dumb down to children, which I really like. It's quite complex, you know. It's a real story, and there's quite a few characters, and we enjoyed it. It's very engaging. It's very well written. You know, we were totally carried along with these excellent things. I don't want to give anything away. What I would say is that it's also quite accurate in terms of it's not a Disney ending. So we do lose a few people along the way, and that, again, you know, that had an impact. But I don't think that's a bad thing. It's quite nice as a parent to be braced for that, because then you can predict some of the issues that might come up or some of the questions that you might be asked. And I found that helpful to know that. But it doesn't shirk away from those important elements of a story, and I think that was quite brave, and I think that was actually quite useful, because I think children do need to learn that there isn't always a happy ending for everybody, and that's okay. You know, we need to learn ways to manage that, and also that allows us to, you know, it's just a story, and I think it's nice with books when they are fiction for us, you know, to feel comfortable it's fiction and we can put it to bed and move on to the next fiction. So 2 books there that I think are very good for older children, completely different. One completely silly and one completely serious, well, not completely serious, but, you know, very different spectrums. But what I love and what I hope I'm showing this week is just the variety that's out there. You know, you don't only have to read Orchard Whatsits, and I hate Biff and Kipper with a passion. You know, the books that come home from school will be from a set, you know, library, and I think it's really valuable if you have children and you have the time to try and just broaden their horizons a little bit, because there's so much excellent stuff out there that's really engaging and interesting and you know, learning experience for children. The Coming of the Spirits has so much in it, you know, that's interesting historically, and I think that was really valuable for us to do that together and talk about that together and have that time. So I think it's just to try and encourage us to not be frightened, I suppose, of indie children's books. I think the quality out there is very, very high. And if you get a chance to look at these 2 authors, Chris Mercer and Rob Keeley, I would heartily recommend you do.